All right, welcome to our second module wherein we are going to talk about robot control software. Specifically, in this module, we're going to feature two of the most common or commonly recommended platforms for beginners in the robotics field or in the robotic system development field. Of course, we have the Arduino for our microcontroller part, and then the uh, Raspberry Pi for the microprocessor part. Okay, so we're going to have a quick introduction also on the some key concepts of modern software development, as well as the some um, first things you should know about the term robot control software itself, right? So let's go. Let's start. All right. As you can see, we have the basic definition of software, um, which says here it is a set of instructions, data, or programs used to operate computers and execute specific tasks. So, typically stored on an external long-term memory device, such as a hard drive or a solid-state drive. Okay, why long-term? Because if we only use the RAM of our computer or any computing device, um, the software will be erased upon taking the power off or turning off the device like our robot. So once we turn off our robot, then it forgets the program. That's why we should have a long-term storage device because that's the only way that we can store our um our programming for our robotic system, right? And when we say software, then for engineers, especially even in people in the ICT field, it follows that we should observe the stages of what we call this SDLC or the software development life cycle, which basically starts in planning. Okay, so we make plans, we set timelines, we set our scope, we set our budget also, and other constraints. All right. Once we have the baseline data for our project, especially for our software project, we collect data for our for determining our requirements. Okay. So we get inputs from our stakeholders and including our target beneficiaries or target users. Okay. Once we have those requirements, we we analyze them so that we can come up with our design. Okay, so we combine the details or we match the details of our planning and the requirements that we get to come up with the most appropriate design. Okay, depending on our constraints and as well as depending on the um the requirements that we have identified. Okay, so once we have the final design, of course, we proceed with the development and then we implement that so that we can test it, right? And as you can see, there are some back and forth motion going on when we say SDLC, especially when we consider agile development type of methodology. Okay, agile development is something that um, that allows the developer as well as the stakeholders to go back and forth in different stages of the development, especially with the goal of coming up with the best output, okay, as best as possible, or no, as perfect as possible. Okay, so um, as long as we don't meet the requirements that we have established, then we can go back and forth with the different stages, such as requirements analysis, design, and even planning, right? So basically, we just build or design, build, and test. Design, build, and test, right? Um, until we come up with the most appropriate solution, okay, most desirable solution. right? And that's actually an important aspect of what we call software engineering, which is the application of engineering principles for analyzing user needs and designing, constructing and testing and user applications that will satisfy such needs. So that's what I mentioned. Until we have satisfied what the target users or beneficiaries desire or required, then that's the only time we get to say that we are done, right? That we have accomplished our goals, right? Or that the SDLC stage is over except for the maintenance part, right? The maintenance is something um somewhat perpetual, or at least something that we extend from time to time if necessary. All right. Remember that in electronics engineering, especially in robotics, we happen to cover everything, right? From the most physical one, from the physics of our robot up to the software development of our robot. So in between, we have the algorithms. We have to talk about algorithms in a while. Of course, have to identify what should be the necessary programming language for our robotic system, or for the components or modules of our robotic system. And those are codes, while they are written in a certain programming language, like what you see here, we have Python, C, and so on. They still go through this process of assembling and compiling. Okay, so they are still being converted to assembly language and then eventually machine language or machine code. So that's the only language that our computers and other digital devices can understand. Okay, so when we say machine code, that's a series of ones and zeros. And now transitioning to the hardware, from software to hardware, we have what we call instruction set architecture. So that's something that is being um, designed or described during the manufacturing of the CPU of our processing unit. So whatever, um, whether you are using a microcontroller or a microprocessor, there's a corresponding ISA, and as well as micro architecture in that. Okay, so the ISA and the micro architecture collectively define the nature of our processing unit. Okay, so that's something about the specs, right? And if we look closer to the microarchitecture is basically composed of gates, logic gates, and both sequential and combinational logic gates such as registers. Okay, and if we look closer, deep inside those logic gates, we can see that those gates are actually uh, made up of transistors, and of course, how transistors work. We how transistors work actually based on physics, right? So based on the movement of electrons or the behavior of electrons. So from the most software up to the most hardware part, robotics, um, there's always a part of robotics in it. Okay, so we have to study everything. When we have to be aware of this, of the different concepts in each of these stages when we are studying robotics, right? So um I mentioned earlier that we are going to feature Arduino and Raspberry Pi in this module, okay? And Arduino is the software part of Arduino is using either C or C++, right? So right now we just included C, but also we always have the option of to use C++ instead. In fact, C++ is um the closer one to what we call OOP. Okay, it has the real OOP. C doesn't have OOP, right? Or OOP or object-oriented programming. We're going to talk about that also later. Now, as you can see, C programming language is said to be the fundamental and versatile language widely used in the field of electronics and software development. And some common conventions include indentation, naming conventions, comments, and braces placement. All right. So I'm not going to dig deep on C. Let's just remember that um, uh, it's usually a good idea to start learning with the harder languages. Okay. So if you have started learning programming with C, then it will be easier for you to learn the most any other languages, like especially Python, right? So um, when we program in C, we normally have these parts. Okay, we have the header file wherein include we state we state the libraries or modules that we are going to use, as well as the header files. Okay, and then we have the main function, and then inside the main function we have the inside each function, as including our main function, we have different statements. We have at least one statement, and followed by the return statement in the end. Okay, so all in all, the inside our main function is what we call the body, right? So header, main function, and then the body, right? So that's the basic structure of C program, and you're going to see later, um, especially when we talk about Arduino, uh, for a little bit, right? Um, so basically, when we write in C, this is what happens. We write our code, especially with the help of an editor or an integrated development environment, IDE. And then when we save our code, the file will be saved as a .c for our source codes. And if you save that file as a header, then it will be saved as a .h file. Okay, and now regardless whether that's a source code or a header file, it will go through the preprocessor, and then once we have that, so the preprocessor will include the files when especially when you use a library or a header file inside it. So they will add that to your code so that they will be compiled together. Okay? Especially when you added or you made use of some functions inside a library. So that library will be added to your code before it will be compiled. Okay, so once it is compiled, you now have object codes, and they are normally saved as .obj or .o. Okay, and after that we have the static libraries, the loader, and up till the CPU before we get the output. So in summary, here's the stages when we from writing up to executing our C program. We write the source code, we preprocess, we compile, and we link edit, and that is actually the entire build process. Okay, and then once we have the code, we can now load it to our whatever app you are using, such as the Arduino IDE. You load it and then you run it. Okay, you press the execute button. Okay, to run the code, right? And of course, you can have your output based on the given input. All right, so that's a quick summary of C programming. Just take note that in C programming, it is very important to uh, be aware that there are several data types. Okay, and those data types are categorized as primary data type, derived data types, and user-defined data types. Okay, in C, we have the primary data types as void, integral, and floating point, and the rest is history. You can see them in our slide, right? Um, for more advanced programs, we have we normally use arrays, functions, and pointers, okay, especially for programs with higher level of logic, okay, or a more advanced logic. Okay, and sometimes we use user-defined data types such as structure, union, and so especially the problem is this is quite complicated in C. That's why I suggest C++ would be a good option or an alternative for you, right? Especially if you prefer to program using the OOP approach or object-oriented approach. So for C, this is the counterpart for OOP. We have user-defined data types, right? Also take note that for each data type that you use, there's a corresponding file size for that. Or uh, as you can see, the smallest one are characters and integers. Okay, they only have 1 or 2 bytes, while the largest ones are the double numbers. So those are numbers with decimal points or with very long decimal points. Okay, they measure up to 10 bytes. Right. So especially this is a concern, especially if we have a very low RAM and a very low storage in our Raspberry Pi or Arduino. Okay. But for, of course, C is more concerned on Arduino. Take note that the RAM of Arduino is significantly lower than the RAM of Raspberry Pi. Um, that's why we have to conserve our memory. Okay. So that's a quick overview of C. Okay. We have some example. I'm going to share some sample problems as well um, regarding um, regarding Python. Okay. So we're not going to focus much on C because uh, we normally go directly to Arduino programming instead. Okay, so this is just a quick orientation, right? So in C programming, we normally use constants and variables, and here is an example of how we. Okay, the constants are here. We have numeric and character constants, and we have these examples. Okay, constant as in they are constant. They are not intended to be changed or to change, right? On the other hand, variables, of course, change depending on our functions or depending on our lines of codes. Okay, they tend to change. Um, there are two main types of variables in C. We have the global and the local. Okay, so as you can see, the global is a variable that is defined outside a function. Okay, especially outside our main function, right? So meaning you can use it in any part of your code, unlike the local variable, which is defined inside your function. So that variable uh, is only good for that specific function. Okay. So for example, if you use global as 5, then anywhere outside your function, it's 5. But if you don't have if you didn't use the same variable inside a given function, then the value will still be the same. Global is still 5. If that variable was not used inside that function. But if a certain function, such as our main function, makes use of the same variable, such as here, so for the global we use 5, but for the local we use 2. Okay, so the local value of this variable is 2. And observe how we assign value to our variables. Okay, we just declare what data type it is. Okay, and then we have our variable name followed by an equal sign, and then the value for that. Okay. So sometimes the value is another variable, but in this case, the value is the direct value, right? The numeric value. And followed by a semicolon, or it ends actually, our entire statement ends with a semicolon, right? Take note that since we used int, we no longer need quotation marks, either single or double quotation marks, because C automatically identifies that as a number, okay, or specifically an integer. Okay, so that's another quick overview of C programming. Okay, um, also in C, it's very important to understand how the conditional statements and the loops work. Okay, how they are being structured. So these two are actually the very basic what do you call this? Yes, control structure, or the very basic component of an algorithm. Okay, so most algorithms you can find at least one control structure, either a conditional statement, an iterative statement, or loop. And sometimes we just have a plain sequential statement. Okay, plain, meaning there are no ifs and there are no loops, right? So in C, we normally have this, uh, or we normally use these types. We have the if else and then we have the switch. Okay, so the if else could be as simple as one if, observe the structure. So we have the condition first, and then inside, for the entire if statement, we enclose the statements. All the statements are enclosed in an opening and closing brace or curly bracket. All right. So okay, and as you can see, when we have an if else, so we close the statements, the body of our if condition, and then we start with the else, and then the else also has its own body. Okay, so and that body is composed of one or more statements enclosed in curly braces, curly brackets or braces, right? We also have the nested if for more complicated algorithms, and sometimes we use the switch statement instead, right? With regards to loops, we normally have the entry controlled and the exit controlled. So for the entry controlled, our two main options are for and while loop. So for the for loop, we normally have this structure, and the first part is for the initialization. What is the initial value of our variable? Okay, in this case, the variable that we use is I, because that's the normal, or the default letter that we use, right? I means, I guess, iteration. Okay, so the first iteration, at the start, we have the I is 5. Okay, and then we have this test condition. It could be a combination of Boolean and um comparative. I forgot that, the the what do you call that? The name of the operator. So inequality, right? An inequality operator, like the less than, greater than, equal, and unequal, right? So normally the test condition involves at least one of those, right? And then last part of the for statement, we have the updation. So normally we increment, or sometimes we decrement the value of our I. Okay, so when we say increment, then for example, if we started with 5, then for the next loop, I will now become 6. Okay, we add 1 in each iteration. So the same thing goes with most other programming languages, actually. Okay, so again, control structures, normally they are normally present at least one of them is normally present in an algorithm. Okay, so now when we have a function, we basically do this. Of course, if we use a certain header file, then we should include it. And normally before we can call a function, we should define it, especially if it is a user-defined function. We create the function by stating first what return value do we expect, okay? And this is the name of our function. And we have the arguments inside the parentheses. Um, the arguments are, when we are defining the function, the arguments are the parameters that we need. So in this case, we have integer A and integer B as our parameters. Okay, and then we have the statements inside the body of our function definition. Okay, and the only statement that we have is the return value of the sum of A and B. Okay, so whenever we input an integer A and an integer B, and we call the function sum, it will basically add those two values. Sorry. Okay, so now this is the part where we call the function. So we create a variable here, add, wherein the value of that variable is whatever the return value of the function sum when the values are 10 and 30. 10 for the parameter, the first parameter, and 30 for the second parameter. So 10 and 30. So we just add these two. Therefore, the return value for this is 40. And for if add is 40, then the final output is the print of the text. Sum is the value of your add, which is 40. Okay, so return 0, 0 is our it's like the fail safe part, right? And to give you more another example here, we have this function. We have void check number. Okay, I think this is too much. We are taking too long, sorry. You can take a screenshot if you want. All right. So you can observe this example, right? We have the function check number. Okay. And here's the definition part of check number. All right. So at the start of the check number of this code, we call the check number. Okay. And then we state the arguments here. Okay, and so on. The rest is history. So, okay, this is not a programming class. That's why we're not going to focus much on the programming. We are just reviewing some essential concepts, right? Anyway, we'll try to provide sample codes in the description as soon as we have them. Okay, for now, kindly wait for a little while, right? So next, with such knowledge in C programming, you can now better understand how Arduino programming works, right? And in addition to those concepts, I'd like to give emphasis on the concept of libraries. So in Arduino, you can Arduino IDE, you can simply go to Sketch and then or Tools, and then you look for the include library or manage library. I guess that's the name of the newer version. Um, and then you choose the library that you want to include. Okay, such as this one, we use the Arduino robot.h library. Okay, so this is a header file that will help us minimize our code by using the existing functions defined in this library or this header file. Right? So one example for that, okay, okay, right. One example for that is here, the robot that begin. Um, Basically, we are telling telling the system that we are using the begin method for our object, right? Object named robot, and so on. Okay, so another example, one more example, we have the robot set mode, meaning we are calling the set mode method so that we can assign the mode line, the values for the mode line and the follow parameters for our class robot. Okay, so this is a basic example. The point is, with the help of libraries, we can actually come up with complicated or advanced Arduino programming without going through a very long code. Okay, and that is possible through ready-to-made predefined functions. Right? So the the bottom line is, if you are going to create an Arduino program, especially for your robotic system, check the available libraries. Okay, those libraries that are appropriate for your intended application. Okay, so I guess that's the bottom line for this part. See you in the next one.